I tend to forget. So we'll start with the motivation and the posture. Posture very important, as we know. Makes so much difference how we sit, how we stand, how we look at people. All of these things are very important. So here we sit in a very confident way, because as His Holiness the Dalai Lama has said, for the task of the Bodhisattva, or the Bodhisattva aspirant, the person who is sincerely working towards being of benefit to the world, to others, that's a huge job. That's a big job, you know. It requires us to go beyond our faint-heartedness and to develop tremendous confidence and courage, which of course, not to be confused with ego and arrogance, although sometimes it might appear that way. Because the Bodhisattva, the practitioner has to be sometimes very tough, very strong, very confident. And that can appear like arrogance to the more faint-hearted, or those who are not aware of what is actually going on. So anyway, our posture is a confident one. We're upright, we're not slouching or trying to hide ourselves as we do when we are upset or afraid. We are not afraid here to proclaim our human dignity. This posture proclaims also the refutation of the poverty mentality. And poverty mentality, by that I don't mean the lack of material wealth so much as the lack of inner confidence, the sense that I'm not good enough. You know, I need all these, whatever props from the outside. I need you, I need people, I need this, that, and the other. I'm not good enough. That inner poverty mentality is overcome on this path. So the posture is proclaiming that. We don't have to be apologetic about being a human being. We can actually be very happy about that. Yeah. And the front of the body is open, because confidence and courage is not enough on its own. We need that open quality, the warmth and the kindness, which is willing to reach out and work with others. That's critical. The path of the Bodhisattva that we are studying, we are aspiring towards, I hope, some of us, that requires tremendous openness and willingness to work with others, which is not easy. We can get very sick and tired of people and their games, their unwholesomeness, their lack of good manners, their lack of gratitude, whatever it is. We can get very, very tired of other people sometimes. Don't you think? I don't think this is just me. I think some of you may have experienced that. So, whereas that can occur briefly, we must not let that derail us. We must notice immediately when we have begun to close down, and when we feel we don't want to relate with others, we don't want others, we're not going to have room in our heart for so and so and so and so because of what they did or said. That we need to recognize and let go of. By the way, my room is very close to a very busy road, which enters Bodh Gaya from the north, from Gaya. So you may be hearing sounds, even though all my doors and windows are closed. So this dual nature of the posture, the confidence as well as the openness, the dignity as well as the warmth and the kindness is implied in it. Also, what is implied in it is, of course, a sense of ease and relaxation. We are not sitting here like enthusiastic, I don't know, first time hunter waiting for, some poor animal to emerge in their sights. There is a sense of relaxation as well as attentiveness in our posture, in the whole attitude. So a sense of stillness, a sense of relaxation, as well as sense of being very alert and awake, very vigilant. As Shantideva says at one point, we are forever, in a sense, poised between the fangs of the disturbing emotions. And if we allow our mindfulness, our awareness to slip, if we are careless, we can easily be taken over by unwholesomeness. So we have to be not only still and relaxed, but also alert, awake, attentive. As far as the motivation goes, what I've said so far already, in a sense, counts as a motivation, because we realize we need that confidence, we need dignity, we need courage, openness, warmth, feeling of warmth towards others. But just to make it, clearer, we are here, we're still alive, independence upon the kindness of other beings, and everything we experience pretty much, a lot of what we experience anyway, depends on others. This very session that we're experiencing together, that depends upon others, each one of us, as well as all of the, of course, other factors, technology, the place we are sitting, the clothes we are sitting in, all of it depends on other people. And those other people, they need help. Because wanting happiness, all of us keep on creating causes for unsatisfactoriness and pain due to our ignorance and the power of the disturbing, afflictive emotions. So we all need guidance and help. And a lot of us, of course, also need very basic kinds of help, food, clothing, and so forth. So we can remember that. Connectedness with others. And we may even feel some sense of responsibility for doing what we can to help other beings. So in order to actualize these motivations, we need a mind that is both stable as well as insightful. We need the wisdom based on stability. And of course, overarching, there is the compassion, the wish to free beings from their pain. So we start with the breath awareness practice because we recognize how we need to have some modicum of control over this very flighty mind, which is shooting off in all directions. So let's engage in the breath awareness practice. Awareness of the sensation of breath at the nostrils or the abdomen, recognizing when the mind is distracted. We need that level of awareness to be aware, recognize when we are distracted, and to bring the mind back to the breath. Gently, firmly bring the mind back to the breath each time that it wanders. And if we are relaxed and alert, this can be a process that is engaged in without tension, without impatience, without comparing ourselves with some ideal we may have created in our minds. So if we are alert to our posture as advised, and to the stillness, the relaxation, and the wakeful quality, the alert quality, then that is very useful and necessary. Okay, we'll start now. There's no gong here in my room. We'll sit for about 10 minutes. If you need a break in the middle, then kindly take a break. Okay. Slowly adjust the mind to change of pace, if you like. So we can maintain this calm, relatively clear awareness throughout the session, if we can. So again, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your participation. So we're on chapter 5. We've been on chapter 5 for quite a while of Shantideva's great text. And we had got to verse 100. It's a very important verse indeed. Because if you remember, those of you who are here, it's saying that there is, you know, in the name of whatever religion or spirituality, we often feel sometimes, I think sometimes at least we feel, oh, I should cut myself off from this, that, and the other. I'm not going to waste my time with anything worldly, you know, because I'm going to be spiritual now and go off and just meditate or, you know, think about God or Buddha or whatever. But actually, as a person who's dedicated to developing the ability to benefit others on this path of the Bodhisattva, we have to be willing to reach out to a very vast spectrum of people. And we may need to do that in many ways because we can't approach everyone in the same way. So we need to have interest in and understanding of many things. And we need to be able to transform all life's activities and situations into the path of enlightenment. So verse 100 says, there is no such thing as something that is not learned by bodhisattvas. मतलब ऐसा कोई चीज नहीं है जो कि बोधिसत्व ने नहीं सीखना हो. हर एक चीज जो लाभदायक है, जिसके द्वारा हम दूसरों को लाभ पहुंचा सकते हैं, वो सीखना चाहिए. You know. Thus, if I'm skilled in this way, nothing will be non-meritorious. You see, if I become skilled in different things and in using different situations, then everything I do will be meritorious. Everything I do will be full of benefits for self and others. You know? So I can't say, oh, I'm not going to, for example, if it's clear that to learn another language would be really useful, you know, because of where one lives or, you know, whatever the people one wants to help so speak that language, and it would be highly beneficial for oneself to learn it. Then in the name of religion or, you know, our own half-baked understanding of it, we shouldn't say, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's a waste of my time. That's not spiritual enough, you know. Why should I learn another language? I'm already blah, 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 this and this age. Why should I learn something else? You know, but to benefit others, on this path, we have to be willing to learn a whole bunch of things, if necessary. If it's really going to be helping others, we should do that. we shouldn't be lazy in that regard, I guess. Yeah, so the Bodhisattva has a very vast attitude. Mahayana, great vehicle. It's called great vehicle for a reason. Right? It's not a small vehicle, it's a great vehicle. It has a vast aspiration, a vast compass. So we cannot be small-minded, let's say. Let's open up what we think we can do, which includes, of course, helping people we think we cannot help, doing that which initially may put us off or scare us. All these things we have to be prepared to engage in. Whether directly or indirectly, I should not do anything that is not for the benefit of others. Solely for the sake of sentient beings, I should dedicate everything towards awakening. So this is a kind of a general statement, revising, a kind of revision. So, in everything I do, it should be aimed towards benefiting others. Nothing I do should be harmful for others. Of course, something may be temporarily harmful in one way, but it should have long-term benefit. For example, a surgeon may cut open somebody's body and you could say that is short-term harm. Yes, it is a kind of harm. But if the surgeon is performing an operation that takes out a cancerous growth or whatever helps that person to live longer, then that is permitted to engage in a temporary harm, like cutting the body open. So, and everything I do should be dedicated towards enlightenment. This is a very important statement. Usually we don't motivate and we don't dedicate our actions during the day, our positive actions. We just do what we do, and if we do a good action, we kind of say, yeah, it's a good action, that's it. But if we were to motivate and dedicate, it makes everything much more powerful. If we dedicate positive actions towards getting wealth or success in this life, well, that's where the benefit will go. It will go towards that end. If we dedicate it towards happiness of future lives, that's what we can expect, the happiness of future lives. If we dedicate positive actions towards liberation, then it acts as a cause to create that kind of energy for liberation, not just temporary happiness. And if we dedicate our positive actions towards full awakening, as is being suggested here, of course, since it's a text on Bodhichitta, which we must constantly remind ourselves is that attitude wishing to, aspiring to highest enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. So if we dedicate our positive actions towards such a noble aim, such as full Buddhahood, awakening, well, that's where it goes towards. To use a very mundane example, if you have surplus money, then there's various ways you can invest it. Right? You may just want to spend it today or tomorrow, and then you may want to put it in a fixed deposit for a year or 3 years or 10 years or whatever, or you may put it in a certain fund which has a greater scope, a greater ability to give a vaster return or whatever. So money is also kind of energy. Right? So we have this energy of positive actions. What are we going to dedicate it towards? If we just dedicate it towards something very limited, like the happiness of this life, let us say, then that's a shame. That's a kind of a waste of that positive energy. We should dedicate it towards full awakening, This is what Shantideva was saying here. It's a deceptively simple verse, but it's very vast. And if we check our actions during the day, you know, I should not do anything that is not for the benefit of others. We do a lot of neutral actions or self-centered actions during the day, like thousands of thoughts, which are totally centered on me, my problem, my this, my that. You know, like children, that's what we do, day in, day out. We're just concerned about ourselves, our own little happiness, our own little bubble, and not so much concerned about people outside at all. You know, if we check honestly, I think we may find that, and that's a little disturbing. If we take this perspective, you know, it seems like a very simple, deceptively simple sentence. Whether directly or indirectly, I should not do anything that is not for the benefit of others. No, most of what we do is not for the benefit of others, I would argue, and you can check it out. Look at your speech, look at your thoughts, look at our actions. How many are really motivated towards benefiting other people? And if we don't have the intention, we don't create that intention, like at the beginning of each day, it is very likely that most of our actions will not be dedicated towards the happiness of others. They will be really quite self-centered, self-preoccupied. It doesn't mean they are bad in that they are harming others. But from this perspective, yeah, if we are only caring for ourselves, that is actually a kind of harm, big harm actually. Self-cherishing thought, thinking only of oneself, actually that is the most harmful process in the universe. That creates the most harm. You know? Wars and everything else come out of that attitude. So it's a self-preoccupation is the worst enemy. Verse 102, never, even at the cost of my life, should I forsake a spiritual friend who is wise in the meaning of the great vehicle and who is a great Bodhisattva practitioner. So you see, one should never give up that kind of friend, spiritual friend. Okay, we may give up our school or college friends who, you know, we don't have anything to do with, and their life has taken a different trajectory, or they live in another country, and we may not have so much in common with them. So we could kind of lose touch with them and not really care about them too much. But that's not such a big deal. But we should never, if we have created a link with a spiritual person, who in this case, in this verse, is saying great Bodhisattva practitioner. Of course, that means a very, very, very highly realized, very extraordinary person. If they are actually a Bodhisattva, then that is extraordinary. And someone who understands the meaning of Mahayana, the great vehicle, what it means. Mahayana means vast motivation, vast spectrum of interests, like verse 100 was mentioning, vast range of skillful means to benefit others, you know, using whatever means necessary. Teaching, acting, sometimes, you know, being superficially or, you know, on the outside very kind, sometimes very wrathful, you know, whatever is necessary to help others. And in whatever department of life, you know, understanding that the great vehicle, Mahayana, means something very vast, very, very, very extraordinarily comprehensive. And of course, the aim of it is the vastest aim. The aim is Buddhahood for all beings. There could be nothing greater than that. It, you know, Compared with that, to want to be just free of samsara or to be a god is just, is nothing. That is, it's like spit in the ground. Because even if we become a great god, then that is limited. That kind of lifespan comes to an end, and then plummet down into lower realms. So someone who understands the great vehicle, someone who is a great bodhisattva, if we ever link up with such people, then we should never give them up. Even just someone who is very wise in the meaning of the great vehicle, they understand the meaning of it at least, and inspire one to follow it. They may not yet be a great bodhisattva, but they have great devotion to Mahayana, then that person is worth sticking around with. One should not give up such a person. I should practice entrusting myself to my spiritual master in the manner taught in the biography of Sri Sambhav. This and other advice spoken by the Buddha I can understand through reading the sutras. So there are various texts on how to devote oneself to such a great guide or teacher. To quote the note here in Bachelor's translation, note number 19, he quotes from the Gandavyuha Sutra, one of the greatest Mahayana sutras, the Flower Ornament Sutra, the Gandavyuha. One should honor and respect the spiritual friend with a mind that is like the earth, which does not become discouraged, although it bears all burdens. Yeah, so it's saying our mind should be like the earth, then should be like a diamond, indestructible in its noble intention, like a mighty fence which cannot be breached by any suffering, like a slave who does not complain in having to undertake all tasks, like a sweeper who has given up all self-importance, like a vehicle in bearing heavy loads, like a pet dog in not becoming angry, like a boat which does not object to coming and going, and like a wise child in beholding the face of the spiritual friend. Noble child, you should recognize yourself to be a sick person, the spiritual friend to be the doctor, their precepts to be the medicine, and an earnest practice to be the way to treat the sickness. This is so important. This, of course, is how we should also listen to the teachings. Those the last phrases. While listening to teachings, even if they're given by some, useless person like me, you should still think oneself to be a sick person, the person teaching to be like a doctor, the precepts being taught are like the medicine, and one's own practice, earnest practice, is the way to treat that sickness. This is very useful. We can become arrogant and think we're okay or not care or careless, but we should always remember we are like a sick person. And we get evidence of this all the time. It's just we neglect it. If you doubt this, then just watch your mind today, this evening, tomorrow. See if you have some irritation, disturbance, some anger, some fear, some anxiety, some jealousy, some blah, blah, blah. If you do, then you're a sick person. According to the Buddha's definition, that is sickness. That is mental sickness. So, but the Guru, amazing how we are asked to regard, how we are supposed to think of ourselves in relation to the spiritual master, yeah? Like the earth. We should be like the earth. We're ready to act as a foundation for all that the spiritual friend wants, doesn't become discouraged when the teacher says, please do this, please do that, And often they don't say, please, do this, do that. Are we ready for that? Mostly we might find, no, we're not. We're lazy. We just do what we want to do, So easy. We want it to be easy. We want the spiritual path to be easy. We want the spiritual friend to smile at us all the time and take care of us and appreciate us. And that is just feeding our ego. And as we've mentioned several times before, authentic guru is there to destroy our ego, is to insult our ego, because our ego is our worst enemy. It's just we don't realize that yet properly. So anyway, how should we respect? Like the earth, this doesn't become discouraged, although it bears everything, even, million-ton mountains and buildings. Like a diamond, indestructible. A diamond is indestructible. Our intention, indestructible in its intention. Our intention to benefit others and to attain enlightenment should be indestructible. No one should be able to persuade us otherwise with some kind of faulty reasoning or, like the devil trying to tempt us away from the noble path by promising us, the kingdom of this world and so forth. Christ was tempted, so many people. We're all tempted in some ways by worldly things. So no, our intention is indestructible. Like a fence, a mighty fence, which cannot be breached by any suffering. No suffering can come in this very powerful, confident mind that we are generating. Suffering cannot enter. This mind of devotion to the spiritual friend. A slave, like a slave, who doesn't complain in having to undertake all the tasks. Yeah, who wants to be a slave, huh? Like a slave, meaning just doing what is said. Being willing to serve, in other words. Usually we are sometimes, I find, willing to serve, but we want to serve on our own terms. I want to serve in this way, I want to do that job. I want these to be the timings. But what if your guru wants you up at 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. to make them a drink, because they don't sleep at night, but they require someone to provide them with something in the middle of the night? Are we willing to do that? Sweeper, having given up self-importance. Of course, in the West, most people still sweep their own rooms, do the vacuum cleaning themselves. But in India, where this started, Shantideva is talking about the Indian experience, and these sutras are from India. A sweeper is usually low caste and looked down upon by other people. So are we prepared to be like a sweeper, giving up the self-importance, working for others, working for the, for the guru, with that attitude that, whatever the guru says, I will do. Like a vehicle in bearing heavy loads. Again, if I'm required to be that way, like a vehicle, I will bear very heavy loads. I will bear very heavy tasks. Like a pet dog, not becoming angry. Wow. A really good pet dog, unlike cats, probably. Sorry, I'm a bit prejudiced against cats. A really good pet dog doesn't get angry with the master. Devoted to the master. Those soulful eyes, especially if it's a spaniel or something. Soulful eye. Ready to do anything for the master. Without becoming angry. Like a boat which doesn't object to coming and going. Boats come and go, come and go, come and go. So if your teacher requires you to come and go, come and go, come and go. And what you want to do most is sit still and enjoy one particular place. But for the guru, you have to go here, have to go there, have to come back, have to go, have to come, etc., etc. one doesn't object to do that because one regards oneself like a boat. And like a wise son, the sutra says son, because it wasn't the 21st century then. The sutra would have been written early Christian era. So like a wise son, so we can say like a wise daughter, like a wise child, when they behold the face of a spiritual friend. So a wise child, in beholding the face of the spiritual friend, are very happy, very inspired whenever they see the face of the spiritual friend. And then again, we should remember to regard oneself as sick, the teacher, the spiritual friend to be a doctor, the teachings to be the medicine, and our earnest practice to be the way to treat the sickness. Then I should read the sutras because it is from them that the practices appear. And to begin with, I should look at the Sutra of Akash Garbha. I don't know this sutra. Akash Garbha is one of the 8 main bodhisattvas, adorned with space. Akash Garbha, and the main bodhisattvas. So I should read that sutra. That's Shantideva is saying. And we should read the sutras because the practices are elucidated in the sutras, and they are the words of the Buddha. In addition, I should definitely read the Compendium of All Practices again and again. That is a text by Shantideva himself. So compendium of from various Mahayana sutras. It's a kind of a complementary volume, if you like, to this great text, the Shiksha Samuchaya, the compendium of Mahayana Sutras, compendium of teachings by Shantideva. That has many, many practices in it that the Bodhisattva should engage in again and again. So one should read it again and again, because what is to be constantly practiced is very well and extensively shown there. So that text has it very clearly. I remember we took teachings on this text from His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Bodh Gaya years ago. And yeah, this has many, many, many practices are outlined, made very clear in this text. Also, I should sometimes look at the condensed compendium of all sutras. I don't know that text. And I should make an effort to study the works by the same 2 titles, of the same 2 titles, maybe, composed by exalted Nagarjuna. So Nagarjuna also apparently has put together some texts based on the sutras. And as you know, Nagarjuna is one of the great, great luminaries of the Mahayana tradition, especially the wisdom tradition. But of course, he's also written on Bodhichitta and is a master of Bodhichitta as well. I should do whatever is not forbidden in those works. And when I see a practice there, I should impeccably put it into action in order to guard the minds of worldly people. That's interesting. He doesn't say in order to guard my own mind. So we should practice according to what's in those texts, put them into action in order to guard the minds of worldly people. In other words, the implication here seems to be that if I practice well what is mentioned in these texts, then I'll be able to help others to guard their minds. And of course, my activities will be such that they never disturb other people's minds. So that will be very, very useful for others. Yeah, people need help with guarding their minds. Yeah, that's the main thing. If you remember the very first verses of this chapter are about that. Yeah, verse 1 of this chapter. Those who wish to guard their practice should very attentively guard their minds. Those who do not guard their minds will be unable to guard their practice. So, it's coming full circle. We have to help others guard their minds with the teachings. And what is that? What is that in essence? Next verse, 108. The defining characteristic of guarding alertness in brief, is only this: to examine again and again the condition of my body and mind. Well, we're good at examining our body, I guess, in one way. But of course, Shantideva here means not just looking at how many kilos we have shed or how many abs we have, or how well developed our calf and biceps are. But he means here, what are we doing with our body? Are we using it in a good way, or are we using it for non-virtue? How am I using my body? Not, so much what it looks like in the mirror. Not like that. And the mind, of course, excuse me, condition of my mind. That's the most important thing. Condition of the mind. Then his last verse, we have to make it crystal clear what has to be done, because we could feel very satisfied having read this and studied this chapter. We might be really quite happy about that, which is good, of course. But then he reminds us, saying, therefore, I shall put this way of life into actual practice. For what can be achieved by merely talking about it? Will the sick receive benefit merely by reading the medical texts? So that's clear. Meaning is clear. Especially if you're of an intellectual bent of mind, like people like me, I love reading. Very proud of my books, my collection of books. And I brought a whole bunch of them here to Bodh Gaya. See those shelves full of books, carried all the way from Delhi. I was lugging them around New Delhi railway station yesterday and Gaya station this morning. And it was heavy, I can tell you. So, but that's not enough, one has to put this into practice. What's the point of just reading everything? Passing exams, written exams, if we don't put it into practice. And he's saying the main practice is to again and again and again watch our body and mind. Condition of my body and mind. Okay, we'll have discussion now. You'll be glad to know. My talk time is over. You can unmute yourselves and speak. And thank you, all of you who are still here. 16 brave people. Wonderful. Including you. Welcome, Vidyaji and others whom we haven't seen for a while. So, your turn now. I hope some of you are awake. So, and inspired by this extraordinary text. Yeah. Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Charu. Charu.
Hi. Yes.
Charu.
Yes. So thank you so much for this wonderful session and the meditation.
Good.
So I was just wondering, as part of what you said, there were a few thoughts. So just the last thought is how to really put it into practice, because there's so much of information that one has gathered for so many years, but it's always about the practice. So the baggage from the past, the thoughts which kind of overpower, is it just the awareness part that once we become aware, is that helpful? Or is it in any given situation where, the conditioned mind is supposed to react, and there's this agitation, which happens within oneself. So how does one go beyond that to a state of responding in a situation and not reacting? Or how to get beyond the conditioning of the mind?
Yeah, well, there's two things there, I think, at least. One is to follow Shantideva's advice to study some of these texts, and they have a lot of advice. Of course, there's too much advice in one way. So the basic thing is to practice some stabilizing meditation, then to look at some of the meditations on love and compassion, and begin to read, at least, and study some of the teachings on wisdom. In other words, the graded path to enlightenment that is there in all of the traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. And I can only speak authoritatively at all about some aspects of Tibetan Buddhism, which is, of course, the Nalanda tradition. So there's some basic things we can do. Of course, the greatest teacher in many ways, apart from the sitting practice and the meditation on one's cushion, is seeing what comes up in daily life. Because, if one asks, what should I practice? Well, we'll very quickly, if we're aware, we will find out what we need to practice. In other words, am I someone more prone to anxiety, anger, irritation, great desire? Or am I prone to, miserliness or jealousy? And if so, then one recognizes that and begins to work on that particular mental affliction. We all have, I think, aspects of all of them, but usually we have some which are, or one at least, which is very powerful. So then we can check the teachings and see how to work with that particular, disturbing emotion. And in the first place, we can train ourselves to at least be aware of it when it's arising. In other words, to watch the condition of our mind again and again, Shantideva says. So daily life is full of teachings that way. If we're willing to be aware, we can see how, when we go, I don't know, to a restaurant or this or that, or into an ice cream parlor, how the mind is affected by something that we desire, how we often order more than we need or can eat. There's a kind of giant sort of desire in the mind, but the body is incapable of fulfilling that by eating it. We just, we can watch all sorts of things, how we get irritated by certain people or situations so easily. So then we know what we need to work on. And the great thing about this text is that by reading the verses, we can get a lot of practical advice. And then books like Compendium of Trainings by Shantideva and other texts, we can then, if we're interested, go into other practices and deeper practices. But so that's one way to answer your question. Another way is to say that we need to purify the mind and we need to accumulate positive energy. So to purify the mind, we have purification practices in Tibetan Buddhism, and anything done that is virtuous, actually, with the motivation of purification, that will act as a purification. So you might say, okay, I want to purify my mind, I regret such and such actions, or so now I'm going to meditate on love and compassion. So then one can engage in that with the express purpose of purifying the mind, and then dedicate at the end, and also, make that pledge as much as possible not to engage in those unwholesome actions again, as much as one can. So that, of course, is the practice of the four powers: power of regret, power of refuge, power of compassion and refuge. Then the power of an actual practice itself, which could be meditating on wisdom or compassion, prostrating, reciting certain mantras. They can all act as purification. And then the fourth power is the power of the resolve, as much as possible not to engage in those negative actions again. So that's purification. And then accumulation of positive energy. Well, there's so many ways to do that. Any beneficial action, any action, especially which one motivates and then dedicates at the end, that makes all positive actions very beneficial. You might just save an ant from drowning in your water closet or in your basin. And if you do it with the motivation to, not just save that ant, but to generate the qualities able to, save others from suffering, then you dedicate that little action, which could have taken just a few seconds. You dedicate it, but right now I'm just saving a little ant from drowning, but in the future, may this contribute to my being able to save countless beings from suffering, drowning in the ocean of samsara. So, things like that help build up a very, very positive, powerful, potential. And also, of course, then train us in a practical way to, to be aware of others, even if it's a tiny ant or insect in your basin. So that can be very powerful and makes one more mindful. Also, where one is walking, one is careful not to tread on insects. So one just takes more care. All of these are methods, but yeah, we should start in a small way. There's also a booklet by His Holiness called Cultivating a Daily Practice, I think, or cultivating a daily practice, cultivating a daily meditation. Slim booklet from the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives. Those kind of things are there. But you're seeing how we also get all these hints from our daily life. So if we get angry or impatient, we can then read Shantideva or others on the shortcomings of anger. This is what the next chapter is about, actually. Patience, chapter 6, which I hope this nun is going to be teaching at Tushita next month. We can start on that before she does also a little bit. Does that help at all? Or are you still in a quandary?
Yeah, it has. It is pretty much, what I sense is getting aware. Also, apart from the readings, which might be helpful, is more about being aware and to cultivate positive practices. And as you also said that, a true guru really hits on to your ego. So your ego crashes. And that's also what happens, not just by a guru, but also with people at times when, they are like triggers and they essentially are targeting one's ego. So, and that's when, we have to be mindful of, our reaction, or, is it ego-based or is it more, it's based on kindness? Like, really, is that what it means to sort of respond in a way which is kind and compassionate, even if the other person is sort of, really hitting hard on you? And
one has to be as beneficial and reasonable as possible, but start where we are. We can't overnight become that kind of person necessarily. But if one wants a crash course in this, or then the best way is to become, interested, or to form a connection with a particular teacher, with a valid teacher, with a authentic guru. Of course, that's not always easy, but that often acts as a very quick crash course, and then one quickly begins to see where what ego clinging is, because the authentic teacher will, especially if you ask that person, oh, please, Guruji, can I help you in any way, or anything, then you had it, because then they're going to give you work to do and places to work in, with people you may not want to work with, all sorts of things. So that can be very good. Then one has to behave like a sweeper or a slave. One can't say, oh no, I'm Kabir with my Oxford degree and I'm not going to do that kind of work, blah, 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 blah. So that goes out the window. One just has to do what has to be done. If you're working in a center and unexpectedly somebody arrives and all of your staff have gone home or on holiday, you can't say, oh, I'm not going to get a room ready. I'm not going to make the beds. I'm not going to clean the toilet. that's somebody else's work. For instance, it's just a small example, but it, it could be very irritating for some people who had servants do all their work all their life, So now we have to be the servant. We have to be the sweeper, the cleaner. We have to clean the dirty toilet. And that's great. Gandhiji knew about this. He made people do this. And his upper caste followers didn't like that at all. Where are you, by the way? Are you in a foreign university? Where is that?
Yes.
Whereabouts?
It's at UPenn.
Where?
At the University of Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay, very good. Hope there's still some greenery there.
Yes.
Good. Well, I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? We still have time. It's 7:45. We can go until 8. Purva, is that Roy Saab? Yeah. Sagar, anything? Pradeep ji? I think Tushita now is just you, Sagar. Well done. So if there's nothing, we'll stop now. And Thursday, we have not yet worked out. Thursday, I most probably can't lead the session because there's a teaching here which I have to attend by a very wonderful teacher, Cherki Nima Rinpoche. And we could have a session, but then it would be, say, at 7:30. That might be a little late. So, and I might be a little tired, but it's a possibility. But we'll work something out and it will be posted by Thursday morning as to what's going to happen on Thursday evening. Sunday morning session should be okay. It's normal. Yeah. But it will be posted. So if there's nothing else now, are you sure? Nobody has some? Oscar Wilde? You can if it's not really. It's not. If it's a simple question, Oscar Wilde, okay. But otherwise, it's part of your ongoing investigation. Do you think if it's relevant for everyone, ask it? Hello. Yeah, you can ask a question. Are you there? You're muted. No. Maybe you need to get that sound working. For a moment it was working, I think, then you again switched it off. You might want to put your question in the chat quickly, if it's short. Okay, yeah, looks like you're not muted now. But I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, you. Yeah, I can, even though it says you're muted, I can hear you maybe from somewhere else. Polo? Yeah, now it's...
So I was reading this chapter on appearance and reality from the book Mind in Comfort and Ease by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And so the topic is dependent origination, and how he's explaining that how things are for their existence are dependent on causes and conditions other than themselves, right? So he takes the example of a flower, and it has there are different aspects of it, like its shape, color, scent and taste, and these are the properties of a flower. But so we assign these specific properties to some basis. So the flower is the basis and these other properties. So but when we take away the properties, there is no basis, right? So my question is, like, for anything, like for any thing which is existing, like so if we take away the properties, the specific properties of that thing, we cannot find anything, right? So what is the relation between the two? Like, I didn't understand this point. Yeah.
I don't understand your question, I have to say. If you take away
So
flower, then there's no
so
flower. But
no, like he's saying, yeah, he's saying that specific properties can only be assigned to some basis for them. And if there are specific properties, there has to be some basis on which these properties can be assigned. Now, the basis of the properties and the properties themselves do seem to be distinct from one another. So like the shape and the color, they seem to be distinct from the flower. But if we think it through another step, once we have eliminated the specific properties of something, such as its shape and so on, if we then seek further for the thing itself, that is the basis of the properties, we cannot find it. So how do you understand?
take a
Now did you understand?
bicycle is easier. You have the handlebar, you have the wheel, you have the brakes, you have everything. But we still think there's some kind of bicycle apart from those qualities. We say, oh, the bicycle has a handlebar, has a wheel, has brakes, as though there's something apart from those parts, which is owning the parts, which is somehow separate. In our mind, due to our ignorance, we create some kind of possessor, some kind of real bicycle that has parts. Whereas actually all there is are parts and causes and conditions and a consciousness which is labeling it, giving it a name, which we all then agree to, in a particular language. We agree to a certain name for a certain object if it fulfills the criteria, if the basis is there. If the basis is the body of an elephant, we can't call it a bicycle or a flower. But if it has the correct basis, then we can call it that particular thing that we've agreed on. And that is the power of conception. But of course, we conceive of some kind of independently existing person or flower which has certain qualities, possesses them, as though there's some kind of other real flower to which these qualities belong. That real flower cannot be found. So you think about that. This is not really the topic of today's session, but it's something you're interested in, which is very good. It's the very basic, well, not basic, but it's a fundamental teaching which has to be understood, which is the province more of chapter 8 and 9 of this great text. But meanwhile, you study more, you think about it, and then other people are interested in this topic, which we all should be, if you're interested, you should start anyway looking at the book that we looked at quite a bit in the last 2 years, which was How to See Yourself as You Really Are by the Dalai Lama. How to See Yourself as You Really Are. That's a very, very good book with graded chapters and questions and so forth. That will be useful for people. Meanwhile, anyone else has found something, especially regarding the last chapter? Regarding alertness, is everybody clear about what Shantideva is saying in this last chapter, which is so crucially important? It's very, very, very important. Without this chapter, everything else is merely intellectual stimulation. If we can't practice this one, then everything else will not succeed. Nobody? Okay, so we'll dedicate. And we'll dedicate with verses from Shantideva himself, from his 10th chapter. It's a marvelous chapter, which you can read sometimes. Parts of this book can just be read when you're feeling down or a little low. You can read some Shantideva. It can make you feel inspired. So this is from the 10th chapter, some verses as part of our dedication today. May sentient beings again and again make offerings to all the Buddhas, and may they constantly be joyful with the inconceivable bliss of the Buddhas. Just as they intended, may the Bodhisattvas fulfill the welfare of the world, and may all sentient beings receive whatever the Buddhas have intended for them. May I live and be sustained by simple common foods, and in all my lives may I find the ideal solitude for practicing dharma. For as long as space endures, for as long as living beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the misery of the world. May the teachings, which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy, be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manju Ghosh, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. Please dedicate never to be separated from authentic teachings and teachers, and to be able to serve those teachers and to serve the Dharma and to serve suffering sentient beings who have been so kind to us. May our lives become most meaningful for others, most beneficial for others, and may we fulfill all of the statements, aspirations made by Shantideva, such as being skilled in living in such a way that nothing I do will be harmful, everything will be meritorious. May I develop those great skills of the Bodhisattvas. So thank you very much. Thank you, Sagar Bhai, for setting up with Tushita, and thank you all for joining us from wherever you are. Have a good evening, a good day, and good night.